What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to walk you through tonight's 11-game slate in the association. 11 games, so a lot of injury news and notes to get to. Mike, how are you doing today?
Doing good. No collared shirt. Didn't have time to put it on. I was wearing a black shirt anyway, so sorry to disappoint people. But yeah, feeling good, man. Lot of writing this morning. Lot to talk about. Nice to get a week down here. Not too bad on the injury front, actually. So maybe we'll probably do this under an hour.
I would love for that to be the case so I can get back to projections work. All right, let's get to the Indiana-Orlando game. Let's start there. Indiana's listed Johnny Furphy, Tristan Newton, and James Weissman out. All kind of the same stuff we've seen before from Indiana. They are on the second night of a back-to-back after an overtime loss yesterday at home. So thought that there could be more that popped up here. What are your notes on the Pacers?
Yeah, I mean, it's not an injury-related thing, but what's up with Halliburton, man? The assists are so far down. The potential assists are down, I think, 3.5 from where he was last year. And compared to the first half, it's like down almost like a half from where he is. So that's been very odd. The drives are down. The touch time's way down. The role's been really disappointing for Tyrese Halliburton overall. So we'll see. I thought they might give him a cue or something like that. So keep an eye on that. I don't know, man. It's pretty tough to make it. I don't know if this is like Siakam affecting him, but watching Tyrese Halliburton and a lack of assists is kind of at the tippy top of things I'm watching on the Pacers today. And then the other one was Benedict Mathurin, who's been playing generally pretty well. Didn't have a good game yesterday, but it feels like his minutes are maybe a little bit limited coming off the season-ending injury last year. So that's something to watch as well. And then obviously, we're getting a ton of Miles Turner with some pretty weak depth behind him overall. Siakam's been playing, quite a bit here too. But yeah, definitely a tough spot against a Magic team that's, healthy-ish. We'll talk about some illnesses that are affecting them. But yeah, let's see if Halliburton could kind of turn it around. We'll see I would assume a lot of Jalen Suggs today.
Yeah, and it looks like Shepard flipped Walker in this one as well. Yep. So something to keep an eye on there. Aaron Nesmith also continues to battle foul trouble. Incredible early foul trouble, 3 straight games for Nesmith. So we'll see if he's able to cure that today. It'll be a tough matchup, most likely, for him on that front. Okay, let's move to the Orlando side of things, where Goga Batadze, Tristan da Silva, Jonathan Isaac, and Franz Wagner are all listed questionable. Batadze with left foot soreness, Tristan da Silva and Franz Wagner with illness, and Jonathan Isaac with a left hip contusion. Will note that da Silva missed last game due to illness, although he's not necessarily in the rotation, was ruled out earlier. Assume, just when you see one teammate get ill, the next teammate get ill, you just sort of like file away in your head that they might be similar things that they're dealing with. What are your notes here in Orlando?
Yeah, we did get the Jamal Mosley shoot-around presser, which came before we got the news there. So we didn't get any comments on what's up with Franz Wagner, but we did find out that Tristan da Silva is quote-unquote still under the weather, according to Mosley. And we found out that Jonathan Isaac's going to be a game-time decision as he's trending in the right direction, so could see him back there. But yeah, we're flying blind on this Franz thing, as you mentioned. Probably has the same thing that da Silva had. But yeah, he's probably going to play, but can never be too sure. Those illness tags, we never really know. If he did sit, it would probably be Gary Harris, I think, moving into the starting lineup, but could be, one of those like third unit to first unit kind of things. Jet Howard, we saw Jet Howard start one game and play pretty well, but would still lean Gary Harris, who's been subbing and mostly behind him there. But we will get, game time Jonathan Isaac today. It sounds like he's got a pretty good chance to play, though.
All right, let's move to Cleveland and New York. On the Cleveland side of things, Max Strus remains out along with the G Leaguers, and then they listed Craig Porter Jr. as questionable with a right thumb sprain. Cleveland's been in a lot of blowout situations so far to start the season, but generally we've seen pretty stable rotation from them. Going into New York here, you would expect this game to be more competitive. What are your notes on the Cavs?
Nothing really, just the minutes, right? We talked about this being a little bit of a concern, but when the games have been even close-ish, we haven't seen that upper minute ceiling at a Donovan Mitchell and maybe Donovan Mitchell. We've seen Mitchell's minute ceiling not quite be as high. Usage has been fine. The role's been pretty good overall, but we were a little bit concerned that Kenny Atkinson would kind of dial it back. The pace has still been pretty strong that we've talked a lot about, but not too much else to add there. But they're in a pretty good spot. Dean Wade continues to lock down in the first unit overall.
All right, on to the Knicks side of things, where Josh Hart is questionable with right ankle impingement. This was interesting because early in this game, he was grabbing at his hamstring a bunch. He ended up playing through the game, but you could see like the broadcast kept referencing he keeps grabbing at his hamstring. He played through the game and he seemed to have like acceleration, which is usually like a hamstring issue, and seemed okay, but he kept grabbing at it repeatedly. Then gets listed with questionable with the ankle impingement. Deuce McBride went to the locker room, came back in this game, listed with probable tag, left knee hyperextension. And then they've got the out tags on Precious Achiuwa, Mitchell Robinson, and Kevin McCullough Jr. What are your expectations for Josh Hart's availability tonight and your notes on his injury?
Yeah, you had all the notes. He did kind of have a collision too in this game. So he's not listed for that, listed with the ankle impingement. So we'll see. Hart's usually played through a lot of stuff. So I don't have a great read on the situation. No notes from Tibbs post game either. But yeah, I would expect him to probably play just because it's Josh Hart. If he didn't play, I think it might be Deuce McBride moving into the starting lineup. We know Deuce has been pretty strong on minutes. Deuce did actually get dinged up in this last game and was asked, if he's healthy. And he said he's 100%, but he had a wrap, all that good stuff. So that could affect his minutes. So we could get, pretty high minutes here in a pretty tough matchup overall against a good Cavs team. But yeah, we'll see. Probably a game time decision. But again, new injury for Hart with very little detail besides what you had kind of laid out there.
All right, let's move to Denver and Toronto. On the Denver side of things, pretty straightforward injury report, just listing De'Ron Holmes and then the G Leaguers out here. So any notes on Denver before we move to Toronto's injury report, which is always more complex?
Yep. Oh, yeah. Not much to say here. The only thing to say is Denver's freaking last in offensive rating, which is just insane to see. So, but yeah, Jamal Murray, the concerns about the knee, he's been having really, really strong minutes here. Should get a considerably softer matchup, even though it is Davion Mitchell. But, the OKC guys and then Terrence Mann have been able to limit him. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty much expected here. They continue to play Michael Porter Jr. a ton of minutes, stagger him in the second unit as well. But yeah, this might just be a joker. Absolutely, just go nuts. We know Pirtle's giving him some big lines here. So yeah, Denver needs this one quite badly with the 0-2 start.
Toronto side of the equation, they've got RJ Barrett listed questionable with the right shoulder AC joint sprain. Emmanuel Quickly listed doubtful with a right pelvic contusion, and then out tags for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, Jacoby Walter, and Ulrich Chomsky. What are your notes here on Barrett's potential availability playing through the Q tag today?
Yeah, decent chance. We saw him travel the last game. So yeah, he's got a chance to play here. Been out, since I think the first game of the preseason, hurt his shoulder. But yeah, started practicing, I think, on Wednesday. So could be back. Would expect a minutes limit there. That would bump most likely Ochai Agbaji to the bench. It would also take away some ball handling. We saw RJ Barrett really handle a ton down the stretch with the Raptors overall. So that would be much needed. That would also pretty much take Jamison Battle out of the mix. And then, it would cut down some of the 2-guard lineups that we're running as well. So, but yeah, tough play off a shoulder injury. A team that should be pretty good with defense overall. And we'll see if it affects Scotty Barnes, his usage and all that stuff. Played pretty well in the Philly game, but it's been a little up and down.
Yeah, I do also wonder, I know Agbaji, the most likely candidate to move to the bench, but I do wonder if like Davion Mitchell moved to the bench as well. And they just like figured out the ball handling between Scotty and RJ, because they've given both those guys like pretty heavy ball handling roles at times. And obviously like behind Davion Mitchell, they've got Jamal Sheed, who's been fine, but like pretty like turning over the ball a ton. You can see in that box score 7 turnovers. It's an outside chance. I don't think it's the most likely scenario. I'd say like maybe 5 to 10% chance, but I do wonder if they kind of go that route too against like generally a bigger Nuggets team, right? Like, I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
No, I don't think so. I don't really have much to add with what you said, but yeah, how much can Pirtle play a lot? That's the other question I have, because I don't think they want to put Bruno on Joker.
Okay. All right, let's go to Detroit and Miami. On the Detroit side of things, still same injury report we've seen the last bit. Oscar Thompson, Bobby Klintman listed out here. Any notes you have on Detroit?
No, I think we can kind of move on here. We did see how many minutes for Jaden Ivey did we see in the last game? His minutes have come up a little bit, but yeah, I don't really have too much to say injury wise. It seems pretty much been the same story. Still waiting for Asar to get cleared.
Okay. Miami side, Josh Christopher and Kevin Love ruled out. Kevin Love listed out for personal reasons here. Josh Richardson not listed on the injury report, so we think we'll see his return. But it's possible, like Alec Burks played really well last game. Miami generally likes to play 9 guys. It's possible they play 10, but they generally like to play 9. So, we saw Haywood Highsmith play the first game, not play the second game. Alec Burks play in his space. Josh Richardson hasn't played either of these games. So there's going to be some, fragility in kind of our projecting of the back end of these rotations. It's a home game for Miami. It's a game they'll want to get to get above 500 here. What are your expectations on how the back end of this rotation settles?
Yeah, so as you laid out there was a quote from Eric Spoelstra going into the Saturday game that they didn't even know when Josh Richardson was going to play. He didn't have kind of full gear at shoot around in Charlotte. So it was a little odd to see him almost sound like he was going to play, given the quotes, hashtag quote bro. But this is a pretty severe injury coming off the heel thing. Missed all preseason, so he's going on a month-ish on this time off here. So there's a chance they just have him active as an emergency. So there's a little bit of concern there. But yeah, it's their second unit's pretty stable with Jaime Jaquez. As you mentioned, Alec Burks has played pretty well. They'll have Thomas Bryant back in there again. They do get Chloe Ware off the injury report, but we've seen pretty consistently he hasn't been able to elevate and pass Thomas Bryant and Kevin Love. Kevin Love's out today. And yeah, Duncan Robinson's still getting, the non-hero minutes overall. But it's not a lock that Richardson plays. We do have a lot of Heat unders, so we're hoping we kind of know what we're getting into with the possibility of Richardson being fake active. But this is their second units got some depth to it. And should note the starters are playing pretty good minutes as well.
Yeah, we've tested everything for 9-man scenarios on the projections that we released we're under, so we're not concerned, but the projections we released might be different than what they end up being. In terms of Burks versus Highsmith, because right now we're splitting that. We took 2 Highsmith unders that we were surprised were even lined. We think Highsmith is less likely to play tonight, but would play garbage time. And we tested his bets at full minutes, and they were basically still viable bets. So that's why we took them. But what is your expectation here? We saw Burks get up to 25 in this game. We saw Highsmith get up to 30 in the opener, but heavily influenced by blowout, played 10 first half minutes, then played the whole fourth quarter because of blowout situation. Who is likely to take that role? It's based the way we're thinking of it is it's their 9th man, but the way the minutes have shook out, it's been more their 6th, 7th man in terms of what the role's been to this point. Jaime Jaquez should be their 6th. Duncan Robinson should be their 7th. And then Thomas Bryant is the backup center. So this spot with Burks or Highsmith, what are your expectations on who is in the rotation tonight?
I kind of lean Burks. There's been pretty consistent both talk and substitutions that he's been in there. I think they want a little extra second unit playmaking and shot creation there. Little revenge game. Had a couple years in Detroit, but So like I said, I think it's not a lock that Richardson plays. I think Highsmith hasn't really done anything to help himself. We saw that one preseason game where he got booted out. We were like, what the hell is going on here? And did come back and play. But yeah, that's a pretty clear indication that Highsmith is far from a lock to play. But I think Burks has the upper hand. It's kind of maybe the last man in.
All right, let's go to Milwaukee and Boston. Milwaukee on the second leg of a back-to-back here after a disappointing loss in Brooklyn last night. The injury report is fairly stable for a back-to-back. I think coming off a loss, there's less likelihood, 2 losses. It's less likelihood that you get shenanigans. But this would have been a game that I would have said at Boston on the second night of back-to-back, that looks like a game to spot rest. Giannis is listed probable. We've noted he's been listed probable the first 3 games of the season. He's played through all those. He played through a lot of these probable tags last year. Right patella tendonitis is the listing. That is what we're going to get on him going forward. And then Middleton's listed out and Stanley Amude is listed out. But what are your thoughts on the Bucks tonight?
Yeah, I know they just lost. I know they're playing really poorly. Their last 2 games have been a complete disaster with the way that Chicago ran all over them. And then Brooklyn just beat the pants off them with pick and roll handler stuff, which was a big trend for them last year defensively. But you're not winning this game, man. You're going into Boston. Obviously, not much travel going from Brooklyn to Boston, but I don't know, man. I think that they might be careful. I would treat this Giannis tag as more of a Q tag. We know that he's had this Q tag probable thing for the right patella thing since, I don't know, All-Star break last year. So, yeah, treating this like a Q tag on Giannis overall, but they do need a win, so maybe they suit it up there. But expecting him to play for sure. But just a little when it comes to taking bets, we won't be looking at too many Bucks unders until we get Giannis for sure in the starting lineup.
Yep. Boston side of things, Sam Hauser's questionable here with low back pain. He's missed the last 2 games for them. Kristaps Porzingis out still, of course. What are your expectations for Hauser's availability tonight?
Yeah, it sounds like he's not too close. Got ruled out pretty quick last game. They certainly don't need him. Mazzulla talked about the back thing still bothering him, so could see him missing. They ran pretty tight last game as they went with the 8-man to put Xavier Tillman, who's consistently really picked up the minutes. They've been playing quite a bit bigger, and then you would need the size here. So I think Tillman should play a pretty good bit, kind of regardless, as they will likely do the flipping and putting Horford on Giannis and then playing Tatum as a quote unquote center was one of the things they did a lot last year. So expecting that again, assuming Giannis is in. Oh, I lost your audio.
That is because I'm muted. Let's move to the Washington-Atlanta game, where Washington's injury report pretty stable here. No Saddiq Bey, no Malcolm Brogdon. They're playing Atlanta, who's on the second night of a back-to-back and has a much healthier injury report. So we will talk through that in a second. Much healthier, I shouldn't say healthier, much more volume on the injury report than Washington. But on the Washington side, they've been involved in a couple blowouts to start the season. Certainly not unexpected with Washington's roster the way it is. What are your notes on the Washington rotation tonight?
Yeah, we feel pretty good that they're going to keep starting this. There's talk of playing Bub Carrington consistently in their first unit. Bilal Coulibaly, his offense has been a pretty big story. It drops 23 points over the weekend. And as we mentioned, really since day one of the preseason, we saw a pretty large offensive role. So I think that's pretty sticky. So expecting the starting lineup to stay the same. Wouldn't say with 100% certainty, though. We saw a lot of starting lineups in the preseason. And as you noted, they've been getting pretty smacked here. Tough schedule for what it's worth. But so expecting Jordan Poole, who's been scoring a pretty good bit. Minutes have been pretty high in the first half. Bilal, Bub Carrington, Kuzma, who's been really bad. One of the worst players, both in the preseason and in the regular season to start the year. And then their bench unit, for sure, a lot of Kispert. Keyshawn George has been in the mix. Valanciunas should play a pretty good amount of minutes here as well. But yeah, getting, then it's kind of a mixed bag. You can't really have any confidence. They did say they wanted to play Jared Butler a little bit more. That was an interesting quote. But yeah, feel pretty good about this. And we saw Alex Sard, really struggle. Can't get shot volume at the rim right now. Missing a lot of jumpers. It's been, a bit of a tough spot for his start to the season.
Yeah, in that game against Cleveland, they ended up starting Jonas Valanciunas in the second half instead of Bub Carrington. I think that is pretty matchup. It was shocking to me that they didn't start that way against Cleveland with the double bigs of Mobley and Jared Allen. The matchup tonight, we'll get to Atlanta's injury report, but they're going to be a little bit smaller at center than they normally are. And Capella is not really the type of big center that you match up Valanciunas with as much, just because Valanciunas doesn't have the verticality that Capella really threatens the rim with. So I think they're probably going to stick in the same rotation that we've seen, but it's going to be fluid with a Washington team that, has a lot of competition on their roster just generally. Let's move to Atlanta, where the injury report has a number of names on it. They'll be without Bogdan Bogdanovic, Onyeka Okongwu, and then guys that they've been without before: Kobe Buffkin, Dominic Barlow, Cody Zeller, Seth Lundy. And then they've got a questionable tag on DeAndre Hunter, who missed last night's game. They are on the second night of a back-to-back here against Washington after, and it's a road back-to-back as well, basically, because they were traveling last night in OKC. So not the greatest spot. We saw Reese Shea start in Hunter's absence. Thought he played reasonably well in a difficult matchup against Oklahoma City. Without Onyeka Okongwu around, we'd expect to finally see Larry Nance, who we haven't seen at all this season. It seems like they're treating him just as a true center, not as a power forward center. But what other notes do you have on Atlanta?
Yeah, let's start with DeAndre Hunter. That right knee injury. This is the same right knee that has plagued him throughout his career. He got managed last year in back-to-backs for right knee management. So expecting the same story here. I assume that they were, what I think it makes even more sense now that we see the injury report, that, sit Hunter yesterday and sit Okongwu today. I think that's kind of the plan here. So I'd expect Hunter to be back. This is, again, obviously a new injury given it's the early part of the year, but this is the same injury he was listed with last year as he was managed, just as I talked about with Giannis, again, newish injury, new season, but this is carrying over from last year that they did tag him. So I think that's why. So again, I think Hunter should be back. Noah Okongwu, as you mentioned, that will get Larry Nance back in the rotation to play the backup center minutes. Expect Hunter to start to push Reese Shea back to the bench. But as you mentioned, maybe this is just an opportunity to start him now. If, Hunter's knee is bothering him and they maybe weren't planning on this, maybe that's a case to do this flip as well. So could get more minutes out of Capella. Other than that, it's pretty much expected. V. Krejci continues to play well. He'll be, I think, kind of in the rotation again. We saw David Roddy play a little bit with no Bogdan. And then really the other story is, my God, Trae Young just playing so many minutes. We expected quite a bit coming into it without Kobe Buffkin and just really, really lacking a lot of ball handling. But man, there was garbage time when he was like pacing for 40 again. So, matchup against the Wizards, like, geez, man, this could be a massive, massive game for Trae Young.
And they've started the season well, right? Like, I mean, they lose this game by 24 to OKC, but they go into the third quarter, at end of the third quarter of this game, trailing by 4 in OKC against a team that's just been hammering everybody that they've played and is a title favorite this year along with Boston. So I think it's been a really encouraging start for Atlanta. And this is another one where, you take care of business at home, you're 3-1 to start the season. And I think, Atlanta's got to feel pretty good about the way things have started on the whole.
Yeah, one more note, if I can, just Jalen Johnson. The role's been really good. I think he's 4th in touches per game, but the scoring's been really bad. He's been struggling around the basket. If there's a place to get right, it could definitely be Jalen Johnson here, even in a back-to-back.
Yep. All right, Chicago and Memphis. On the Chicago side, Lonzo Ball is listed available. He had missed the second game of the season, which was the front end of a back-to-back for them. Listed available tonight. No other injury reports, no other injury notes that are really relevant, just G Leaguers who are listed out. So what are your expectations on the Bulls tonight?
Yeah, it should be good to go. I'm curious to see how many minutes Josh Giddey plays. We saw Josh Giddey's minutes kind of be yo-yoed a bit. I think he could be vulnerable, given the matchup. But Zach LaVine's playing a ton. We talked about this a lot, that he's been cleared since like June, July, and we saw really big minutes. I think he's 3rd in transition points per game, so perhaps the biggest beneficiary of this new Bulls system, which has been just pace galore. They're 1st in pace, absolutely getting wrecked inside. So yeah, the Bulls are like almost new Wizards from like a game environment standpoint overall. But Kobe has had some tough-ish matchups. Really, really bad in OKC, but he absolutely undressed Damian Lillard when they played the Bucks. So he's been playing pretty well. Minutes have not been affected by that addition of Lonzo and some more depth there. And yeah, we'll see how many minutes Paul can play. We saw Paul get upticked against Giannis, not surprising. Against Jaren Jackson, maybe they push him up here again. So it's kind of what I'm getting at. I think Patrick Williams' minutes could be safer when they really need the big wing slash guarding a heavy offensive player like Jaren Jackson is there. So keep an eye on that. And then Lonzo does take a little bit of minute stealing away from Giddey too. So not too into Giddey overall. And then Vooch against Edey should be fun. We've seen Vooch have some pretty big minutes and a pretty decent role overall.
Yeah, no, Vooch is. I know a lot of Chicago fans are hoping that Vooch is rekindling trade value. I think those are pipe dreams, but they're hoping for it with his early season play. On the Memphis side of things, they have questionable tags on Ja Morant, right thigh soreness, John Conchar, right foot soreness, and then out tags on Luke Kennard, Gigi Jackson, Vince Williams, and Cam Spencer. What are your notes on the availability of Ja Morant tonight?
Pretty sure he's in. I was expecting a tag on him for this back-to-back game on the screen, and he got it, but he did play. So it's the same tag. Should be good. This matchup is incredibly good for Ja Morant and Desmond Bane. I mentioned the pace. Grizzlies are 2nd in transition possessions per game. So yeah, this is just right up their alley here for a big spot. But the other note too, which was pretty clear, we talked about this on the Friday show, they are clearly managing his minutes. There was a comment from Taylor Jenkins after the opener that it's going to take multiple games to get him back up to speed to play normal minutes. So you can't really feel good about him playing too much over 30. So as great as this matchup is, and he has to go absolutely nuclear in his minutes to like really pop off in a big slate. But then again, he might. It's because this Bulls team has been so vulnerable to rim scoring and pace happy players, which is Ja Morant's MO for sure. So by the same token, Desmond Bane, a little bit of foul risk has cut him down, but minutes have been pretty strong. Had an 18 second half minute game mixed in there, so he could play a pretty good bit. Marcus Smart's also been kind of a little iffy as Santi's been playing, pretty great off the bench. But Jaren Jackson's second game back, we saw his minutes as expected were capped. We had an under on him on Saturday that panned out, so expecting him to still be limited. Missed about a month from his hamstring strain. As well, so expecting minutes caps on him, and then we'll see if Zach Edey can get the ball rolling against Vooch. But yeah, Jay Huff just keeps playing too well at this point, as he's like basically starting to ice Brandon Clark, and yeah, just really starting to almost ice Zach Edey. And we said it, like man, people were buying into the preseason stuff without John Morant, without Jaren Jackson. Like, you can't play that fast and get that many post-up opportunities. So Edey will be better, but yeah, the people who are reaching on Edey at like 4th round, 5th round, like you've got to be kicking yourself.
Yeah, in terms of Memphis going forward, they talked about the 6 games in 9 nights to kind of start the season. This is a game that is what we call an island game, meaning it's not on either side of a back-to-back. They're not on the back end or on the front end here. Do you expect to still see 11 in terms of the rotation size for Memphis at this point?
I think it's less likely. It's not really something that Jenkins did. Look at their schedule, right? They had Utah elevation first game of the season, and then they had 2 back-to-back games. So, it gets about as bad as it gets for just wanting to manage their minutes here. So I think that there's a chance they trim it down, but at the same token, like you're not taking out Jay Huff. Like, Jay Huff's been too good. So maybe they cut Wells down. I should mention Conchar has a Q tag to possibly trim things down a little bit too. But yeah, I think I would lean. I think I would lean 11 just because I think that they like this 3 center split. So you basically have 2 halves making it a 10-man with this 3 center thing they're doing.
And that's the problem is that usually you're chopping up the center minutes 2 ways, but if you chop them up 3 ways, it's really hard to even get 20 out of one of these guys. You see Huff 19, Clark 18, and Edey 13 there. That's 2 minutes of overlap amongst those 3 players. That's with Jaren Jackson not playing any center minutes. So you're talking about the floor on the minutes of any one of these individual centers is really, really low on a game-by-game basis. And there's just a lot of depth here for Memphis, who looks really good to start the season. Obviously, they took advantage of Orlando on a back-to-back, but just generally, they look like they have a lot of depth that we questioned Memphis having last year. They look like they've replenished that depth quite a bit with a healthy Brandon Clark, with the way Scottie Pippen Jr.'s development has come along. This is still without Vince Williams, too, who we really liked his development last year. So this is looking like these Grizzlies of old, teams that were very, very deep and could beat you that way. Okay.
Scotty's defense has been great, man. Like, he's not going defensive player of the year, first team, second team, but he's really kind of changed the game and made life hell on some point guards that he's guarded so far.
Yep. Let's go to Houston and San Antonio. This is a rematch of the last time out. Houston still has Steven Adams listed questionable. This feels like we're heading in the direction of this is going to be the questionable tag for a couple weeks, and we'll eventually get an available tag, and that's when we'll know he's going to play. It just seems like we're not close, but we're still getting questionable tags. And then the G Leaguers are listed out. What are your notes here on the Rockets?
Yeah, you mentioned Steven Adams getting basically ruled out, and they're not even updating it until the game starts. So that's a pretty bad sign there. So I'm with you there that he sits out. We'll see if that shifts smaller. We'll see. But yeah, did not play well. Couldn't score inside against Wembanyama. Really bad game from Şengün there. So yeah, expecting mostly to run it back. We'll see if Jalen Green could hoist a lot of jumpers as he's been doing throughout the preseason. So, but yeah, Tari Eason did play in this back-to-back, which is a good sign for his health. There was some comments. I was expecting him to sit in this game, the back-to-back, but played pretty full overall. And I thought he looked fine. So, yeah, should expect a pretty similar spot. And then should mention Jabari Smith's minutes have held up, pretty well. I was a little bit concerned there, but he's been, playing bad game on Saturday, but in general, Jabari's off to a pretty good start.
Yeah, and Şengün last year dominated the matchups against Wembanyama, and then Wembanyama really struggled on the other end because they guarded him with Dylan Brooks. So it might just be Wembanyama's gotten a little bit stronger, and his length is going to be more challenging to someone like Şengün, whose game is built off of power and then footwork, right? Kind of footwork to separate from guys. But if you're trying to separate from a guy whose arms are so insanely long that you can't even separate if you get him out of position, it might not be as effective. So will be another test for Wemby with the extra weight that he's put on, if he can kind of hold up against Şengün, because Şengün last year was just kind of putting him under the basket and then basically dunking. So it's a different Wemby first time out these two meet. On the San Antonio side, no Trey Jones and no Devin Vassell still. We saw Chris Paul's minutes in the first game looked like they were trending towards 33, 34. And then in this game, even without Trey Jones, they were a little bit more managed. It looked like this was the pacing of upper 20s. I still think Chris Paul's going to settle into these upper 20s range, even without Trey Jones. We saw a little bit more confidence in rookie Stephen Castle in terms of his ability off the bench. What are your notes here on the Spurs?
Yeah, Trey Jones out for a couple weeks here. So, They ran it tight-ish. We were curious to see if they were going to bring in Blake Wesley to be a big impact player, but they bring in Malachi Branham as well. We should get an update. November 1st is when we get the update on Devin Vassell, so it could be pretty quick. But yeah, the story to me, has to be Jeremy Sohan. He is crushing. His usage has been really strong. He's had pretty good night every single game so far this year. So that's a big story. We'll see if that continues overall. You laid out the Chris Paul stuff there. But then Wemby's minutes, we're seeing 30. There was a lot of commentary about rust and being slow. Had a pretty good offensive game here, which a matchup he has struggled with before, as you mentioned. But yeah, feel pretty good that this rotation is going to be mostly sticky. We did see Stephen Castle's minutes come up. That was something we were really talking through. Didn't really do too much with them, but there was also some talk about him being on the ball a little bit more. That could continue to grow as he gets more reps in the second unit.
All right, let's move to Utah and Dallas. On the Utah side, Isaiah Collier's out, as is Johnny Juzang, Micah Porter, Jason Preston, and Oscar Tshiebwe. Questionable tag with Drew Eubanks, who hasn't really been a part of the rotation. So all intents and purposes, this injury report, though long, is basically the same as what we've seen to start the season. What are your expectations for the Jazz tonight?
So, little word about a Will Hardy rug pull here. They got absolutely wrecked in this game. Will Hardy did the classic, get your whole first unit out of the lineup to start the third quarter after call it 2.5 minutes. And then he also made the team rewatch this entire game after getting embarrassed. So, little bit concerned that we get some funny business here. But for now, expecting, as we've seen throughout the preseason, they've run almost an identical rotation. With these guys, with the starters, with very little overlap from Jordan Clarkson and Colin Sexton there. But yeah, Dallas has been pretty good. Their interior defense has been quite strong. Meanwhile, the Jazz's defense, which we'll talk about on the other side, is embarrassingly bad. So could be a lot of good stats on the other side of this one. But yeah, expecting mostly the same rotation here. But again, as I said, when a coach does that and you get blown out this bad, they're going to make you rewatch the whole game. I definitely wouldn't be surprised if they do kind of change something here, which would probably be something of, maybe flipping Jordan Clarkson and Sexton. That's I don't think they would pull Walker out. So just something to keep an eye on. I don't think Keontae would go away either.
Yeah, I think if they were going to make any sort of move, the only player that played, in my opinion, like reasonably well was John Collins. Clarkson played okay. I thought Collins actually kind of gave them a lift and played with energy. The challenge is the rotations get screwy if that's not for Walker. They've shown a lot of commitment to Walker. I know the matchup with Dallas in terms of their bigs and the verticality is not as good for Walker as it might be for John Collins. And then I don't think you can take out Taylor Hendricks because of the matchup with Dallas, that you kind of need that size to be able to defend on the perimeter. So I think, maybe Clarkson for Sexton, maybe Collins for Walker Kessler. I think they're both low likelihood in terms of probability, but certainly if they come out and play poorly again, which you would expect them to do in Dallas, you might see some tinkering, because we know Will Hardy does like to massage lineups. Okay. Dallas side of things, no Dante Exum, no Maxi Kleber. What are your notes here on what we can expect from the Mavs?
Yeah, no Maxi, so that could add a little bit more to PJ Washington. Maybe we actually get some Quentin Grimes minutes. I can't believe he only played 6 minutes against the Suns after I was worried about Klay Thompson's minutes because Quentin Grimes could cut him down. That looks I've had some bad takes. That's looking like one of the worst ones I've had. But yeah, this is just pants off for all the perimeter guys. The Jazz are allowing the most catch and shoot points and the most transition points. They're 28th in defense. This was a trend for them last year too. This is I've always called Utah, guard heaven. So Luka coming off another 40 could be a big game. Worried about garbage time. Obviously, a huge spot for Kyrie. We know Klay Thompson lives on catch and shoot stuff as well. So yeah, someone for sure, in my opinion, somebody on the Mavs is popping off in this game. Just a matter of how many are they going to pop off, and can they play it all in the fourth? There's my two biggest things. And then should mention too, Gafford starting again. But Lively playing great. Their rim defense has been freaking awesome. Teams can't score on them. Again, you play the Suns. That's a bit of a product of that. But overall, Dallas playing generally pretty well. Tough loss against the Suns, but have liked what I've seen out of the Mavs for the most part.
Yeah, I thought Lively played great game one. I did not think he played well in game two. Nurkic just bullied him around. And I think that's one of the issues on Lively that you're going to see is against really big, bulky centers. Can he kind of hold his own? I think that's the one concern on Lively front. Walker Kessler doesn't have that kind of offensive presence, but similar it certainly is that kind of big, bulkier center. But I thought Lively was so good in the opener. I just thought in this one, like Nurkic really kind of bullied him around and didn't let him get. That's why he only had 2 shots in 21 minutes. It was basically like he couldn't get near the rim because Nurkic in deep drop was just like, no, you're not going over me, and then he had nothing to offer offensively. That's the risk on Lively. So something to think about with matchups going forward. Lakers and Phoenix on the Lakers side of things. Very busy schedule to start the year for the Lakers. But they've, navigated it well. 3-0 to start tonight on the injury report. Out for Christian Coloco, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Maxwell Lewis, Quincy Olivari, Armel Traore, Jared Vanderbilt, and Christian Wood, all the same guys that have been out. So it's basically the same 9-man. I don't think there's too much to note here, but what are your notes on the Lakers?
I actually got the wrong box score up. But yeah, should be good to go. LeBron coming off a really big triple-double, as producer Ryan noted. We just talked about the Lakers on the podcast. But yeah, I mean, LeBron's role is really small. Only 8 tries per game, but obviously just if it got there on just jump shooting and all that good stuff. But then really the headline to me was, AD goes off for 31 points, but minus 22. But yeah, really, I mean, there aren't many players who are like stable players who have like smoked our minutes projections night after night, like Rui Hachimura has. Shout out Jay Ivey for 1 game. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. Jackson Hayes has played really well. The other story is like Dalton Connect's coming here, man. We're starting to see maybe, D'Lo's minutes aren't as safe overall. But Austin Reeves has played pretty well. Really lit up the Suns on Friday as well. So yeah, we know this, man. We knew this from literally media day. JJ Redick said, hey, we're running 9. And then, with the way that their bench has not really done anything besides the 4 guys they're playing, we should feel very, very strong about this 9-man rotation. They're going to be running for the foreseeable future.
And
at least until Vanderbilt's back, I should say.
And the most important note, the report was Bronny James would go to the G League when they went on this road trip. So should be seeing Bronny James to the G League shortly, and no more Bronny James half-point lines that we have to have discourse over. Okay, Phoenix side of things. Bradley Beal, questionable right elbow soreness. He missed last game. Josh Okogie, Ty Washington, and Jalen Bridges all listed out here. What is your feeling on Bradley Beal's availability tonight?
Yeah, we saw Bradley Beal get a new listing. He had a shoulder P tag earlier in the year and then gets listed to an elbow. Didn't sound like he was close. We kept looking for like warm-up stuff. Kellen Olsen noted he was like not warming up. So a chance he misses here. Don't have too much else besides that. So we'll keep an eye on that for Bradley Beal. But really, the story was Ryan Dunn, played really good great defense, and then, hit some big shots. The only rookie in the NBA who has 2+ 3-pointers per game made is Ryan Can't Shoot Dunn. So the dungeon popping off. We'll see if he doesn't play. We know they would probably start Grayson Allen. Get to him in a second, but there's a chance that Ryan Dunn played so well if Beal doesn't play that Dunn, who was barely playing in the first game, he played 9 minutes when Grayson did play. So yeah, we'll see if Ryan Dunn kind of earned more. I think quite sure he did earn some more because he's been just awesome for like a month now. How much does Nurk play? That's the next question. We saw the 2 games that they were healthy-ish. He was not playing a lot, and then as you mentioned, he played pretty well in this Dallas game. Got absolutely wrecked by AD earlier. So how stable is his minutes? We see Tyus Jones play a ton. That Kevin Durant, we were worried about Bud lowering minutes. Man, Durant's playing a ton. And then my last note is Devin Booker's role is down. I was doing some notes for matchups at 54.5 touches per game. That's down from 73.4. Yes, there's a little bit of a couple minutes per game that have caused that to dip, but that's down. The touches are down. His potential assists are down from 12 to 9. With Bradley Beal missing a game, that was a little surprise. So this could be the Tyus Jones effect. So maybe, Beal wouldn't have that superior upside if he is losing the handling role. And again, just losing touches isn't good for your overall scoring, especially when Kevin Durant is playing this many minutes and shooting this many shots. So keep an eye on Booker, his role. I definitely think it seems a little noisy and fluky to me, but it is surprising to see 54.5 touches for Booker. It's just like such a low number. But yeah, other than that, we'll see what's up with Beal. Probably going to be a game time at best.
All right, Portland and the Kings, the last game to go through here. Portland has not yet submitted an injury report. They are on the second night of a back-to-back here after a blowout win against the Pelicans. Anything that you're looking for or anticipating from a Portland injury report today?
No, I didn't see any injury stuff. They maybe, hey, oh no, we won this game. What are we doing? We can't be winning games. So from that perspective, maybe you see something. But yeah, nobody's hurt. Should see, we saw a lot of overlap from Scoot and Ant. Ant played pretty well over the weekend. 2 games against Herb Jones, and he has a pretty good outing. I was a little concerned after the first game and missing so much preseason, but he looks like he's in a pretty good spot. DeAndre Ayton, in a pretty good matchup against Sabonis, should be a good spot. We know Tamani Kamara has done more than enough to start. And then, Jeremy Grant and Denny have been quite good. But that last man in, it's been a little bit of a mixed bag. We've seen it be Jabari sometimes. Sometimes it's Repair. So, yeah, doesn't really matter. But something to watch is how they kind of close out this rotation overall.
And then the Sacramento side, no injuries here. Devin Carter and Orlando Robinson both listed out, not expected to be parts of the rotation here. So the question for Sacramento is how high do we keep going on the starters as they've played things very, very tight to start the season? I mean, these are like 7.5, 8-man rotations. So these are like playoff rotations that we're starting the season. They are 0-2. So, it might be like a level of desperation that we're just kind of dealing with here as every game in the Western Conference feels a little bit more important. But I will also note that this is the front end of a back-to-back for them. So, and they're very big favorites against Portland. So what are your expectations on what we see from Sacramento tonight in terms of the starters' minutes?
Yeah, man, I don't know. Definitely could see it being pretty high. They need a win here pretty bad. So I still think they played kind of a pretty good bit. Probably not to this level where they're playing 40s. But, man, Fox should go absolutely off. I almost cover boyed him. He averaged 34 points per game against the Blazers last year. I think he'll absolutely take it to Tamani Kamara with his speed. So expecting a big game from him. We'll see if Keegan could be under 40 minutes here. But, yeah, certainly Mike Brown is not messing around. He is, West Coast Tibbs at this point with these minutes.
Yeah. And we saw, Kevin Huerter played well in that second game there, in our third game, excuse me. And so it seems like his minutes are kind of steadily ticking up a little bit, but like we were concerned that they had added this depth in and we didn't know how it was going to impact guys. And like Keon Ellis, who we thought was going to be starting this season and like started at the end of last season and played really well. DNP coach's decision. I mean, it's kind of shocking the fall that we've seen from Grace with Keon Ellis. So any notes on if you think Ellis is close to getting back into this rotation?
I think, like you said, I think the back-to-back factor, you would think they would extend it here. And it's very odd to be, media day saying, oh yeah, he's our starting two.
Yeah.
Then gone. Like, man, he's like the anti-Rui, guys we thought had good minutes and just completely went away. So like I said, he should be back, but hardly encouraging to see him get nuked like that.
Yeah, it's been disappointing for sure. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. As always, if you are interested in checking out some of our premium content, you can go to establishedrun.com/subscribe-MBA for more information on our product offerings, both on the DFS side of things, where we've got Mike Gallagher's matchups column 3 times a week, shows with myself and Mike Gallagher 5 times a week before lock, projections for every game, every slate, extra DFS content, strategy-oriented content, either written articles from Winky or from NBA office hours that we'll be doing on Thursday with myself, where I can help answer your questions directly, access to subscriber Discord, all sorts of goodies in that in-season DFS package. If you're interested in checking out the player props package, you can see we raised the price. We're trying to kind of, manage number of people in the subscription and whatnot. But you can read the FAQ for more details, the challenges of getting bets and the risks of getting limited and all the things that come along with trying to bet props. But we continue to bet props successfully. And as long as people are interested in hearing our bets and wanting to pay for our projections and our bets, we will keep running the subscription. So we're off to a really good start to start the season. 18.75% ROI, up 16 units through the first week. So feeling really good on that side. But please do read that FAQ because it contains a lot of information that would be useful in terms of making a decision there. If you're uninterested in joining any of our premium content, you can help support us on the free content side, and that is right here on this YouTube channel. You can subscribe to the channel. That certainly helps us out in a big way. You can smash that like button and help feed that algorithm, which allows us to feed our families and feed you the NBA injury information analysis you need each and every day to set your DFS lineups, your season-long lineups, and make your spread bets and your prop bets. So smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, get notifications whenever we go live by hitting that bell. You can check out episode 418 of the Established Run NBA podcast that Mike and I just recorded this morning. Fresh off the presses, producer Ryan has put it up on this channel as well. So you can go right from here to that and consume that content and get our thoughts on situations like the Lakers hot start, the Nuggets slow start, the Bucks disappointing last 2 games, and if OKC and Boston are runaway title favorites, all in podcast episode 418. So enjoy the games tonight. We will be back tomorrow with another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. Until then, we'll see you next time.